Hi everyone, and welcome to the DemandTools MassImpact training session. This is Olivia. I'm the Product Adoption Manager at CRM Fusion. And today's just a quick 1-hour class going over the different capabilities included in MassImpact. So just a few things before we get into the MassImpact module. Just what we're looking at here on the screen. So we have our current version. If you're seeing an upgrade banner, go ahead and upgrade because those are free. Doesn't matter if there's new functionality, new features, bug fixes, it's all free. So if you have that upgrade option, go ahead and make sure I'm in the most current version. And then these next 3 tiles, the self-help takes you to the search for our knowledge base as well as our documentation. The live training gives you links to the other training sessions we have available. And then tech support, if you qualify for it, this is where you can log a case. Also, you can click this link and log a case if you want the recorded version of a training session, either today's or some other session maybe that you can't make or was on before and you want a refresher. And then at the bottom, we have our social media stuff. So our latest tweets, how to stay in touch with us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and our YouTube channel. And then just some other phone numbers and email addresses to contact sales and support. Everybody is in listen-only mode, but if you guys have questions, I certainly want to answer them for you. I just ask that you type them into the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel, and I'll keep an eye on that. As questions come in, I'll read them out loud and provide the answer. All right, so MassImpact can be found over here on the left. It's the first module listed under the maintenance. If you click on the module name of MassImpact, it'll launch the module. If you click the white question mark with the green background, it will launch the help docs for it. MassImpact, though, is our multi-table data manipulator, meaning this is a good tool for modifying existing data. It works with any standard or custom object, standard and custom fields. And it allows you to modify your data in a variety of different ways. So we're going to walk through an example of each of the different options you have in here. We're going to talk about the final results grid that you're going to see and the different capabilities you have there. And if at any time, if you are curious if something is possible in here, if this would be the best tool to use, feel free to ask. And you don't have to wait for me to ask if there's questions. Type them out as they come to you so you don't lose them. And then I will just make sure I get them answered, at the best time possible, but certainly before the call ends. All right, so if it's jumping ahead or falling behind a little bit, I may table it for a second, but I will address it before the session is over. So the first example we're going to run through is just a real simple change that we're going to make to some account records. And we're going to focus a lot about just what you're doing in the interface right now to communicate to the system what you want it to do. The first thing, well, here, let me tell you what we're going to end up doing. The end goal here is to take any records in the state of Ohio, and we're going to put them in a certain record type. Okay. So I'm going to work with my accounts. That's the object I choose. And you choose the object based on where the field exists that you're going to be updating. Okay. So this is possible, and we'll show this later on. It is possible for it to work across objects simultaneously. So let's say I was changing something on the contact level, but I had to query something from its associated account. You can do that, but since the change is happening at the contact level, that would be the object that we select because it's the object to change. Okay. Then what we want you to do is to select the fields that you want to view on the result grid. The first screen is all very much set up, choosing your object, choosing the fields to view. The second screen is where you tell the system which records you want to affect with the change and what that change will be. And the third screen is the results that you can see, so you can decide if you really want to go ahead and process. So for a process where we're considering things like the state and the record type, those are the types of fields that I'm going to pull in. So when I look at my result grid, I can decide if this is set up the way I think it should and if I want to push the changes into Salesforce. So you're not processing in the blind. You get to decide if records get pushed through or not. I'm going to bring in, let's see, the state. I'll bring in the account name and also the record type. I'm going to bring in the record type ID. I'm going to expand my table join. That's what those plus signs indicate. And in that table join, I can now get the name that belongs to the record type, rather than just the Salesforce alphanumeric ID. So somebody's asking for a recording of the webinar. You can absolutely have one. Just it would be easier for tracking purposes for you to log a case and request it, or just email me directly. And here's what I'll do. I'll give everybody my email address again in case you don't have it. Okay, so when I get to the result grid, oh, what happened to my, sorry, stuff's jumping around my screen here. Okay, when I get to the result grid, the fields that I'm going to see from the records being affected with the change are the ones listed here. And they can be rearranged just by dragging and dropping, but it just shows you what's checked off. All right, step 2. The top portion, again, is querying the record that we're going to affect with the change, and then the bottom portion is what the change will be. So I had said anything in Ohio needed to be a particular record type. I'm going to say billing state equals, exclamation point equal sign represents not equal to. I use a comma for an or in my value. No space after that comma. Okay, and then I add my condition. Bubble 3 over here gives you a link to the help doc that talks specifically about conditioning. And then there's some little reminders in here as well, like no space after the comma. Okay. While this fulfills the queries of the data that I want to get, if I wanted to make this a bit more specific, maybe by state or city in that state, we'll say Cleveland. The only reason I'm doing this is so I can illustrate another function. Right now, these two conditions are anded to each other. So this is now telling the system, for the process that we're setting up, we're only going to affect records where the billing state is one of these two and the city is this. If you wanted these ORed to each other, you can turn on expert mode. Okay, the default is anding, but you can enable ORing by enabling expert mode, and you'll see this OR group pop up on the right. If the conditions still have the same OR group number, they are still anded to each other. Okay, I can click in here and either use the directional arrows or I can type a 2 and click enter, and now my conditions have been ORed to each other. So they're only ORed if they're in different group numbers. And you can have multiple conditions in each group. All right. So I will be querying records regardless of state and vice versa for the city. If you want to take everything back to being ORed, you can just uncheck expert mode. Or if you wanted to like clear off groupings that just went badly, that's what I always do, just uncheck that. If you want to get rid of a condition, click the blue box to the left and then delete on your keyboard. If you're working with a Mac, it's going to probably be function delete if delete alone isn't working. All right, so that's some basics on just general conditioning that you're going to see throughout the different modules, but while it is required here. The other piece that I want to show you is if your process is to affect every single record of an object, you can do that. Okay, you would just have a generic condition that the ID of the object is not equal to blank because every record has an ID. Okay, so it would be this condition here. So that's a generic way of saying affect every record of this object. All right, in some of our conditioning, you have a use all, use condition. Here, we just have conditions, so that would be your way of saying use all. All right, now the bottom is where we're going to tell it what the change will be. So first it wants to know this new data that we're putting in, where do you want it to go? I want it to update the record type. Okay, so there's my record type ID and my record type ID name. Now you'll get used to this as you start using the tool more and more, but if I say record type ID, I'm working in the value tab here. We're not going to consider these other tabs for a minute. It wants me to type in the ID of the record type, and that's just annoying because I don't know it and I really don't feel like going to look for it. But you have this other one called record type ID name, and this one gives you the names of the actual record types, so you can say, okay, yeah, that makes more sense. I want to make them customers. And then once you have selected your value, click Add to Set Conditions. Okay, and you'll see it translates it into the ID for you. Now, depending on the type of field that you're modifying, will dictate the type of value you're allowed to put in there. Let's say we're doing just up to a long text area field, like description. The value tab here, you just freeform type. Keep in mind, though, that it is case sensitive down here. The query value up top is not case sensitive. However, the set to value will be if you're doing any typing. If it's a single select or multi-select pick list, you're going to see those values. So you don't have to worry about making sure you're typing it in properly. And then, let's see, date and time is going to look a little different. Where's my created? Oh, I guess I can't set it there. Hang on, we've got a test field here. I just got to find it. Okay, so date and time. You've got a drop down and it shows you a calendar, but you also have to take into consideration the time, okay? So that's how these things are going to appear just slightly differently. All right, but it's only going to look at any settings that have been added to the conditions. All right, so again, the top portion, query the records you want to affect with the change. The bottom portion is what the change will be. Let me just back up real quick because we're going to start looking at the results. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on this because the next few examples, I'm not going to belabor the detail here, okay? We're going to be more interested in what these functions do. And I saw that question come in about a parsing formula, and if we have time, yeah, for sure, I will show that. So you come into MassImpact, you choose the object where you want the change to take place, right? Then you choose the field that you want to see on that verification grid. Then you go to step 2, and you query the record that you want to affect with the change on that object, remembering that the generic for use all is that the ID is not equal to blank. Then at the bottom, you choose the field where you want the new data to go and what the new value will be, okay? And we're just using the value tab right now. We're going to go through these other ones in a minute. somebody's asking me what does the limit by condition mean right here, and I will show you that in a minute, I promise. All right, so then we go to step 3. It goes out, it starts looking at our records. When it's sitting at 0 out of 100 like this, we're just waiting for Salesforce to pick up the job and start responding. All right, because you got to remember, you just jumped into a long line of people all across the world trying to hit these APIs and make changes. So sometimes, especially around now, tends to be a little bit slower. But off-peak hours obviously are faster. And once this kicks in, it shouldn't take very long. Unfortunately, we have no control over how quickly Salesforce responds to us, and that was a long time in the scheme of things. Typically, I don't suspect you waiting that long, and my internet connection's a bit slow too, so that could be affecting mine. All right, we can see that we found 20,502 records. What that means is 20,502 records fit the query that we did back on screen 2. Of those 20,000, 9,090 need a change. Now, I could have been more granular with my search conditions and said that the state is Ohio and the record type is not equal to customer. Then I could have parsed it down to just the 9,000 that need to be set up. Okay, so I could do this and say the record type, and it's not a big deal if you don't. So record type name not equal to what I'm trying to eventually set it to. Okay, so the conditioning would have looked like this. Then I would have only been brought back those 9,000 that needed changing. But I wanted you guys to see what it looks like. See how quickly that kicked off? I just want you to see what it looks like when you have a mixed grid. Okay, so name, billing state, record type ID, record type name. These are all the fields that we asked to have brought back to us in screen 1. So this is the field level data from these records in Salesforce. You'll notice that it says new record type ID because that's what we're changing. And if it's highlighted in green, it means that yes, this record is going to have a change made. Also, we'll see that because the data change checkbox is checked, and this is a static checkbox. Okay, so if it's checked, it means yes, what you have in Salesforce is going to be updated to this, what's being set by this process. If it is unchecked and also highlighted in beige, it means that while this fits the query, there's no change that's necessary. An easy way to group these together so you're not scrolling through 20,000 records that mean nothing to you is click the Show Groups checkbox on the bottom left. And you have a drag a column header here to group now. I group by data changed first because I get all my false stuff. So these guys are already in a customer record type. I don't need to look through those 11,000. But these 9,000 need to be changed. So if I needed to do some spot checking, this is a great way to do it. Okay, I can also subgroup. So if I wanted to let's see, this is not a great example, but let's say I wanted to see, you know, which ones were OH, which ones were Ohio. I can subgroup by that. And the reason I like subgrouping too is we have these counts now. So it shows you, okay, 100 or 8,000 of them are Ohio spelled out. 3,302 are OH. Maybe not something we really care about for this process, but just so you can see that you can subgroup. Sorry guys, I keep muting you because I have a cough and I'd prefer not to have it on your recording. But then down here, you know, same sort of thing. All right, and I just like the counts really. I think that's a little bit more helpful. All right, so let me uncheck all. And you see this use checkbox, that's one that's being checked and unchecked. In order for a record to be processed, you have to have the use checkbox selected and data changed, or you have to have the use checkbox selected and the update unchanged records. All right, let me explain the first one. This one's pretty simple. We can see it says, yes, go ahead and use it. the data is going to change, fine. And when I click Update Records, it'll push through the update. Let me view that. And again, I'm not going to go through this detail on every iteration. It's just the first one through. All right, so here's my record in our test database, and the record type is prospect. We're changing it to customer. I click Update Records, and you'll notice the records to change is now set at 1 because that's all we have checked off. So that is real-time reading how many of these you've checked. And I update the record. It reminds me that this cannot be canceled mid-process, so for one record, not a big deal, but when you're doing 50,000, may make you think. But we're going to give you a restore file. So if something does go wrong, you can have that and use MassImpact to reverse the change. Okay, this is what we like to see, 0 errors, but had there been errors reported, they would be reported in your log file. The first link is your log file, and look at the file path. It's a local save unless you've changed your file pathing for this. So they'll be listed under Documents, a DemandTools data folder, which you'll all have because you've installed the tool, and then log files. Okay. Then you have your restore file, same thing, under Documents, DemandTools data, but a restore folder. And then you have the file, and all of your MassImpact restore files start with MI. Okay, pretty easy, MassImpact. Then we give you the object you were working with as well as the date. Once we ship these out to your computer, we couldn't care less, nor could the system, what you do with them. If you want to change the file type, if you want to rename them, save them somewhere else, these are for you to have for your processes should you need to reverse something, okay? Now my restore file extension you'll see is XLSX. I'm going to click OK here. Under Edit and Options, the very last option is where you set your restore file. The default is CSV, and you can change these on the fly per process. Okay. Now, because I processed something in that grid, when I clicked OK, it jumped me back to the beginning, but it still has all my settings in place. Okay, and if I go back to Salesforce and refresh, we'll see that this changed to customer. Okay, so for the question that just came in, they're saying when I get errors, they don't come in a separate log file, the success file error log, both gets downloaded as a single file. Can you tell me if there are any settings to change this? I think you're confusing modules. I think you're thinking of MassImpact, and this is MassImpact, because we don't give you any success files or error files like that. Now, you may, okay, so, well, hang on, let me show you here. Just so you can see, here are your options for stuff like that. It's always under Edit and Options. And you can see that there's nothing really in here for that. Okay, because these things are set already. They're going to do what they're going to do without any interaction from you, right? This is all predetermined. Now, just so you can see it, because maybe you're just a tad confused on what they should look like. Here's our DemandTools data. Here's my log file. Where are you? And I've got mine by org ID. That's how you see all this. All right, so there's the log. It just tells you it started, if there were errors, okay? With a restore file, if there are successes and failures in them, it'll show in one file, but the errors will be logged in the log file. Okay, so this worked out just fine, and let me see if I have another MassImpact. But MassImpact, I think, is really where you're getting this. You might want to log back in and run a test. Okay, so those are all successful. I don't know where if I have any with errors in them, but we can always look. Okay, and if this is something you want to take offline, we can do that too. But good questions, guys. Thanks. Okay. All right, so we saw that it said it was done, and then we looked at Salesforce, and sure enough, it was changed. people might be thinking now, well, you know, I did one, I've got to do the rest of these. So yeah, you just want to step back through your process because everything is still saved there. And now you have 9,089 records that need to be changed. All right, and of course, if you wanted to change all of them, have the Use checkbox selected, and anything with data change checked will be changed if you click Update Records. Okay, I did mention that the Update Unchanged and Use check would change records. Just table that for a minute. We'll show you that. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about the grid too before we moved into other examples. So you can export the grid data, which exports exactly what you see here. You can do formatted Excel, which looks just like the grid, or just a raw data file, which is just, you know, a normal spreadsheet. You got the uncheck all, check all, but of course, when you grouped things, right, you can right-click on a group. Oops. I went to group by that. There we go. And I can check or uncheck that group. That's another reason I like the groupings. Okay, let's talk about this update unchanged records. And in this process, this is not something you would want to do, okay? I don't want to touch an unchanged record here because there's no point. But let's say you have a lead assignment rule that you just created and you need to get a touch on every single one of these leads, so because it's set to do it on an edit or a new insert. Instead of obviously going into every single lead and clicking edit and save, you need to do something generic to those records so it thinks it's being changed, right? You need to get that edit and save click to happen. You can do that by doing a generic change in here, all right? So let me, you know, I want you guys to see this. I don't want it to be theoretical. So let me just show you an example of that. Then we're going to use leads since I was talking about lead assignment rules. Just going to grab some fields. I can find what I'm looking for. There we go. And I want to do this for, let's say, maybe all my unread leads. I have an unread by owner status in here. I don't know if it's showing me unread. Okay, we'll do anything owned by a queue. So then we know it's not something that somebody is working on. And when you do owner name, okay, it's kind of like that record type name. You're going to see your queues in here. So somebody's asking, can you search for a field in here? You can click like the first letter of, you know, and it'll scroll through. So I just keep clicking M like that. All right, so we're not actually changing these leads. I just want to do a generic thing. So I'm going to update a field with itself. I'm going to update the first name on the field or on the lead with a field, and I'm going to update it with itself. So we're looking at two things now. We're looking at updating with the field and then what processing unchanged records will look like. When I say update the first name field with what's in the first name, it's updating a field with itself, so nothing is actually changing. Okay, so that's what I would consider a generic change. It's not actually changing. But what the update field does is it copies the value from the field on the right to the field on the left that you have set to change. And look, so the first name, they're all yellow, right? 0 records to change. But this would be perfect if I wanted to kick off a lead assignment rule evaluation. What I would do is I'd click Update Unchanged Records, and now look, records to change 954. And then I can click Update Records, and while nothing at the field level is going to change, it still gets that Edit Save touch, which will kick off an assignment rule or workflow or whatever it is that you have set up that may need that. Okay, so data change is not checked, nor can I check it. But with Use and Update Unchanged Records selected, you can process changes, or with Use and Data Change selected. Okay, so let me go back for a moment. And this is, I mean, this field thing, this is kind of clever because it allows you to copy what's here and paste it here. A lot of times when I see this used, you know, people will be like, there is a value on my account and I need to push it down to all my contacts, or, you know, there's a value on a related object and I need to push over to a field on another related object, is my point. It doesn't have to just be accounts and contacts. So let me do this. Let's load a scenario, because that's another thing. You guys have pre-built scenarios in here that you can use. Anything that starts with VT23, it came stock with the tool. And let's do, okay, we'll do this. If the contact mailing address is blank, we're going to make it equal what's on its associated account's billing address. Okay, so we've pulled in fields from the account and the contact. And to get to the account fields, remember you access your table joins, because what we're seeing here, all contact level fields. What we see inside this join are our account level fields. Then up top, we're specifically saying that the account billing street, city, state, and postcode is not equal to blank, because we don't want to work with blank stuff. We're trying to update blanks. And then we also said that the contact address is blank, because we don't want to overwrite anything. We just want to update if it's blank. So down here, we said, okay, the mailing street on the contact will be updated with, we chose the field tab, expanded our account table join, and then chose billing street and added the condition. Okay, so mailing city equals account billing city, and so on. All right, so take a look. What we have here in the green is just a copy of what's over here on the account, and the contact will absorb that. All right, now we're working with some smaller subsets of data, but another option on your grid that I wanted to point out is when you use the bulk API. All right, and that's for larger data sets, okay? Hundreds of thousands of records. When you use the bulk API, maybe this is what you were talking about too. You've got the success and error file. I didn't think about that. So that might be why. Here you can combine them if you want. All right, so check your settings. Again, I mean, at first I thought you were talking MassImpact, but if you're using bulk here, that could be another valid reason. All right, and then also you can save your scenario. So I didn't save my last one, that was more custom, but I can call this whatever I want. Blank con. All right, let me see what other questions we have out there. Okay, the limit by conditions, we're still going to get there. Okay, and then parsing example with the formulas. So let's look at the formula tab. And you know what, we'll do this with the contact. So let me get rid of some of these fields. And another trick, if you don't want to go through and uncheck your fields to get rid of them, you can click the blue boxes here and again click delete, and it'll remove them. Let's do first name, last name, and company. Okay. And I'll do this just for a few sets of records. I'll say stuff where owner, and then what we're going to set this to is a formula, okay? And there's a whole bunch of formulas here, and how they work, they're similar to Excel, right? So what you're going to see there is similar to some of the stuff you see in Salesforce. Bubble 5 will give you a link to the documentation for these. Okay, and all of the formulas, just some general notes at the top, but all of the formulas are listed here with quick links that'll take you to examples of them. Okay, so we've got parse name, return first name, last name, suffix, return the title, proper case name, a whole bunch of stuff. So let's do the parse. And so you see here, parse is the first name into the specified field to be updated. So what that means is I would have first name chosen here to update. And I would choose my function, which would be parse and return the first name. I could also do it for last name. Okay, so then what else do I have to do? Now down here, it gives you examples of how to set these things up. Where is, I want to find an example that uses the word input. Okay, here. This is a different formula, but when you see input in these documents, it's a misuse of the word because you're not, this isn't the input, this is what's already in Salesforce. So this is current Salesforce value, which means if this is the current Salesforce value, once we apply this formula against this field, this is what it's going to spit out to you. That's the result, because we're proper casing the name field. All right, so I just wanted to point that out in the docs because I don't like the use of that word because that makes me feel like I got to put something in, not like it's something that's already in Salesforce. Now I can click check formula, and it's telling me get variable full name at position 34, so it lets me know if there's any issues. Okay, so I'm going to delete where it says full name, and I'll leave my cursor there, and I'm going to insert the field. Okay, so it's going to look, take this formula, look at this field, and give me back the first name. But again, I can check it, tells me it's okay. Also, when I add it to the set conditions, it's going to do a check. So if it wasn't okay, it wouldn't let you add it in. Okay, so here's what we have, right? We've got first name, last name, and it's just parsing out the first name for you from the full name field. Now, this, I don't have very many examples of showing parsed, but that would be used if the first name and last name are both in the first name field, maybe. But of course, you'd want to update your last name field first and then your first name field. But it just shows you, what the first name field will have now. Now, of course, it couldn't parse these because there's nothing in the first name field. That's why we got that error. Okay, so let me see. Yeah, I just don't have anything with the first and last name in the same field. I think that's the issue. But does that help answer the question about the parsing formula? I mean, assuming that my data was all in that first, or all in that field, it would just, return the first name of it. Okay, but working with the formulas will vary depending on the formula that you're using. So let's say I wanted to proper case the name. I'll insert the function, go down to proper case, And then the string value here, so you see sometimes it says string value, sometimes it says a specific value. String value shows up when it's a bit more generic, when it can be applied to a lot of different things. If I was doing like a state or country standardization, it would say state or country formula. Okay, so a proper case, the first name. Oops. And I clicked update set condition, and it pulled in my new formula. All right, so see how it has Denny is all proper, now it's, or all upper, and now it's proper. You can also click on a header and it'll sort by that. Okay. All right, now with these formulas, some of them can be nested. So if-then formulas, a bunch of different things you can do with it. If there's more time at the end, we'll come back, maybe we'll look at some more, but for now, that's the basics. Let's see. Can you do both first and last name proper case at once? Yes, so good question. You can do multiple field changes at once. If I wanted to also proper case my last name simultaneously, I just have to reset up the formula for that field. All right, so there we go. All right, so these things can happen. Now, if you choose, if you're like, oh, well, I want the first name to go through, but not the last name, it's all or nothing. All right, so when you have them set up that way. Okay, so what's the process for parsing? Last name, then first name, then, well, it depends on where the data is. So if everything got put into the first name field, I would parse out the last name and update the last name field, and then I would update the first name field, because when you do the update of the first name field, it's going to wipe out any last name that's in there. If you are including middle initials in that, and things, it depends. But the way you need to think about it is where the data is, and you don't want to overwrite that until the very last, so you can use the data in there to parse out into the other fields. All right, let's look at object counts and field summing, a little bit different than the first three. And this is where the limit by condition will come into play. We can do object counts, right? Kind of like in Salesforce roll-up summary fields. How many contacts do I have on this account? How many cases? You can do something similar to that in here, but you don't have to have a roll-up summary field to do it. It can just go into a number field. So let's see, do I have a pre-built for this? No, I don't think I do. That's right, we will just set one up. On my account level, I have a whole bunch of fields here. If on my account I wanted to see how many contacts I had, or maybe how many contacts I had with an email address. Maybe, okay, so marketing's come to you and said, I need to send out an email blast to every single account that we have, but I need to know how many email addresses are at every account because I need to figure out what the cost is going to be per account. And we do it by how many people have email addresses, right? So the cost per email. So let's say we have a contact count field specifically for those with email addresses. All right, that's what we're going to pretend this contact count field is for. Now this is a situation where I'd want to do it for all accounts. Okay, but for purposes of the demo, we're just going to do a small subset. The field that I want to update with the count is my contact count field. I'm going to use the object count. I will choose contacts. Okay, the way this is now, it means it's counting up every single contact. I only wanted those with email addresses, so I limit what's counted here, I limit the contacts by a condition. And I say that the email address is not equal to blank and add the condition. So I'm limiting the object here that is being evaluated. And when the add limit by condition is checked, you know that there's a condition here that's parsing down this object. Okay, so let's look at this one. I click my view button, it launches me out into Salesforce. And if I look at my contacts, it says 5+. If I show 2 more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 7 have an email address. And that's what my count is telling me. 5 of the 7 that were there before have emails. You know, maybe 7 of them had email last time. But then, you know, sometimes people say, well, I don't really have a field I want to put that in. So this new contact count field or this contact count field, I don't want to update it. I was just using that in my process. And that's fine. If you don't update the records, nothing gets pushed into Salesforce. You can just export this and send it over to marketing and say, here's your count by company. So here's the company, and then here's the count of contacts that have email addresses. You know, so a very simple way to do almost like a report. You know, you can trick the system. Of course it wants to know, well, what field are we updating? You can pick whatever field you want. As long as you don't process it into Salesforce, it doesn't matter. It just needs to think that you're going to put it there. So a lot of people use this as kind of a clever reporting tool also. Similar to object counts is field summing. We are still working with a child table, but then we are summing something from there. So let's go back and we'll do, instead of contact count, we will do the sum of closed won opportunities. So opportunity amount, sum closed won. That's I'm going to update here. So I choose my table, which in this case it's opportunities. Because remember, the main table I'm at is my account. These counts are going onto the account based on their related subobjects. Once you choose the child table, it tells you which fields can be summed. I just want to do the amount, but again, I said closed won. So I have to limit my opportunities by a condition. And I say that the stage equals closed won. Now, if I wanted to sum up all the opportunities, I wouldn't use conditions. Get rid of that. And I know what you guys might be thinking, why is 0.0 not an update here, but it's an update here? 99.9% sure this is a known issue that's currently being fixed. So I'm not even going to try to explain that, but it should just be zeros. So if you're running into that, let me know, and I will see if we have a different version to give to you yet. I'm not sure we do, but this does remind me of a known issue we were talking about yesterday. But there you have it. Those are the sums. So here I could, let's see, group by the amount. All right, so there's looks like just a few that actually have a value. Right, but still, as finance wants to know, I need to know the dollar amount that we've had for this year for opportunities that have been closed won. And this is a really easy way to get that report to them, you know, without even having to be in Salesforce. And if we wanted to add the condition of, you know, created this year, you can do that. Create a date, and you've got these different queries when you're querying on a date field. For this fiscal year, whatever. Okay. I like these just because I like getting clever information about my data in a very easy way. All right, so we've talked about the different options here. The only thing I didn't show you is when you're saving a scenario, you can put a description here. So if I load up another scenario, let's see, yeah, changing all Olivia-owned accounts to prospect record type. Okay, so if you don't want to have to kind of page through and see what's going on, you can do there. Now, keep that in mind if you're using one to start with. Let's say I use this one to start off with, and then I make changes to it. Maybe I change which record type it's going to be. I got to remember to change my description. So sometimes because I'm a little bit lazy, I shy away from that. But if you're diligent, this is a easy way for you to see what's going on. All right, I think somebody was asking about a trim formula. So you've got trim start spaces, end spaces, and trim spaces. So I'm not sure what exactly you're looking to do, but the trim start spaces, if there's any spaces before the value, it'll get rid of them. The end spaces, obviously, if there's any after, it'll get rid of them. And then trim spaces is if it, you know, you're not really sure, maybe it's just kind of all over. In front, is there a concatenate formula, for example? Okay, so there's not a concatenate formula, but yes, you can concatenate. And it's listed up here in the general notes. Concatenate, right here. You just use plus signs. See, so if you want the opportunity name to equal the account name plus some sort of text string you put in, you would say the account name and then a plus sign, your hyphen in double quotes, another plus sign, and then the value after the name would look like this. So if the existing account name, oh, I hate that that says input. The existing account name is IBM. The result is IBM plus the verbiage you wanted after. I keep trying to click on my questions and missing it. Okay, cool. Sorry, I was looking at this question that came in here. So you want to get the www. So basically what he's showing me is that in the front of an email address, people put it like a website. So it says www.abc@xyz.com. And they want to get rid of the www in the front. We can do that with, let me take a look. I can't remember the name of the formula off the top of my head. With the right. So let's see, where is it? So returns a specified number of characters to, I don't want a specified number of characters. So would it be the left then? I always get the left and the right confused. No. I'm gonna have to look at that. Off the top of my head, I'm not coming up with it right now. I'm sure it can be done. I just have to think through it for a minute. So let me see who that is. Hang on. And if there's any other questions, please feel free to type them in. Okay, so I have your name. I'm going to open a case on this. I'm not thinking through this very clearly right now, probably because I'm in training mode. But let's see here. Starting from the right in a text string. No, because even that is just going to give us the 5. Yeah, I'm going to have to think that one through. So I'll take that offline. But if there's any other questions, please feel free to reach out. And like I said, if I can't answer it, I will log a case for you. All right, one other thing. Remember the view button on the grid here? If you click this and it doesn't take you into Salesforce and you want it to, go to Edit and Options and then have the Use Salesforce to View Objects selected. Because otherwise it just brings up this HTML view, which some people are fine with. I just like seeing it in the UI. And I kept clicking that button, so I wanted to make you aware of where this setting was. But that's it for MassImpact. Those are the different types of changes you can make. And again, it is just an update tool, so there's no deleting records or inserting records, but you can export the grid. Any other formulas to help clean the database? So, I mean, there's a lot of formulas. Yeah, you've got uppercase, propercase, lowercase. Oh, you know what? We might want to do mid for that. Yes, that's what we need to do is mid. Yeah, so that one's another good one. The normalized U.S. address, that one's pretty slick. Make sure everything's in the U.S. postal preferred format. We have a zip code clean. So it reformats, like it says here, the U.S. zip code. A lot of the little blurbs here will tell you which ones are good for data standardization. State matching and country matching. So the state is for the U.S. states, Canadian provinces. It puts them either into the abbreviation or the long form. For the country, we'll do the abbreviation, 2-character and 3-character, the long form, and the ISO number. So just depending on what you want. North American phone fix, we also have, and this one isn't pre-built, but you can build a formula to properly format your Canadian postcode. So I said the left billing postcode, give me the 3, then a space, then the right billing postcode, give me a 3. Oh, these are all in Ohio. That wouldn't work. Oh, no, I guess I don't have any. This is for accounts, that's probably why. Be better off on contacts, but it'll put it in the proper formatting. So there's a lot of stuff like that in there. All right. So you know what? I'm gonna technically the webinar portion of this is over. We've gone over all the detail. You guys have asked some great questions. I'm Moeen, the one who asked the question about trimming the first 4 characters. I'm going to stay on and do some of that right now. So if you want to stay on with me, great. For anybody else, if you want to stay on and watch, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, I do want to say thank you for attending the session. If you guys have feedback for the session about the training, how it was given, basically on me, that's fine. I'm good with constructive criticism. If you have any feature requests or issues or things that you just want to say about the tool and have us hear you, you can always log a case for that, or you can email me directly and I will be sure that it gets to where it needs to go. Okay? All right. Okay, so I'm going to just continue on and try to answer this question here. Let's see. So we have email address that starts with that. All right, let's go back and we're going to go to the contacts. Let's try to do a real world example of this. Now bring in email and the name. And for this, real quick, I'm just going to say email address is not equal to blank. I'm going to parse it down a little bit further, because I'm really going to have to update some of my data to fit your example. We'll say owner is me. Okay, let me look at this mid formula. After getting starting position, and I believe that's what we want. Yeah, so it's exactly what we want. The mid formula always escapes my attention span here. So we'll update the email address. We'll use the mid formula. And the string value will be email address. So insert the field. And you can either insert the field, or if you're, I just hate typing. And I just, you know what I mean, you can type it in with the brackets around it, and that's fine. So we do 4. And so these are bad examples, because if you look at the email address, okay, the current email address, right, it says Larry, but I'm just returning RY because I got rid of, and actually I should do 5 because we want it to return starting at the 5th position. So let's do this. We'll hit this guy, and I will just quickly update his email address to be www. Okay, and then let's regather my results, and there you have it. So Larry, of course I sorted it, but you can do a find. There he is. Okay, so it got rid of the www dot and just gave us the email address. So just so you can see that again, that's what you want to use. Let me see if I can put that into the questions area chat. Cool, good questions. All right. Looks like most of you stuck around to look at that. That's cool. All right, great. Well, I do want to be respectful of everybody's time. And again, thank you for joining me. Thanks for sticking around as I stumbled through the mid formula there for a second. Good luck getting going on MassImpact. And like I said, if there's any feedback about the training, guys, I don't mind. I'd rather have you tell me if something wasn't great so I can fix it. All right, have a great rest of your week. It is Wednesday. You got the middle of the week going, and we'll hopefully see you on other sessions. I'm going to end the recording now and stop the webinar. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.